Hi, and welcome to another episode of One Health Talks. And today we have Josep Maria Coll, who is a systems thinker from Barcelona. And he is going to explain his background to us. And then we're going to ask a couple of questions that links his discipline with systems thinking. So thank you very much for being here, Josep. And we can start with just talking a bit about your background, please.
Sure, my pleasure, Julian. Thanks for inviting me. Actually, I've always considered myself a systems thinker, but I wasn't aware of that, because my entry point to systems thinking was my curiosity for how the world works. Thinking is the process, around we structure the information we receive so that it allows us to make decisions and we survive. And even if we can thrive, in the world, but in that case, doing the same process in order to trying to understand how the world works. That was always my motivation. Something that drove me since I was a little kid until now. And what I'm doing, since I'm aware, I'm a systems thinker, is trying to learn more about this, and how to structure the process and becoming more reliable in that. And but my entry point to systems thinking was, I'm an economist by nature. I also studied business administration, and my PhD was in international development and innovation and sustainability. So but in these fields you need to think systemically, right? Because the nature of the challenges are global, are local, and are interconnected with different systems, right? The ecological system, the social, and the economic systems as well. So, systems thinking, actually, when I was aware that I was a systems thinker and that I could learn a lot about this, that there was a discipline on systems thinking, it was mind-blowing. It was a breakthrough for me, But my entry point to systems thinking was something which is quite rare when in the networks and in the discipline of systems thinking, which is about Eastern perennial philosophies that are systemic by nature. And in my case, I've spent a lot of time living and working in Asia, in South Korea, and I was very attracted to Zen. So I started practicing Zen, and then also, Zen is the symbiosis between Mahayana Buddhism and Taoism, which was developed in East Asia, in China, and later South Korea, and then Japan. And then in Taoist metaphysics, I also studied Taoist metaphysics with some Taoist masters there. They initiated me in that field.
Oh, wow.
And I discovered those were the earliest systems thinkers, And some people say, but why they were the earliest systems thinker? Because we have indigenous communities that were systems thinker, and they are totally right. I mean, any indigenous knowledge rooted in nature is by nature systemic. But why I say the Taoists were the earliest is because they documented their knowledge into methodologies like the yin and yang theory and the 5 elements theory, that until those days and now they have been applied into different disciplines, like traditional Chinese medicine.
Yes.
And what I'm doing, the nature of my work is actually apply those systemic methodologies and bring it to organizational management and sustainable development. This is what I'm doing. Actually,
mind blown.
my new book, which was published in July, Julian.
Congrats!
Thank you. It's about that. It explains that process. It's about applying. It's called Buddhist and Taoist systems thinking, and the natural path to sustainable transformation. Because it's actually, those are very much rooted in this vision of a deep ecological awareness, in this connection between human beings and nature, and how this can be applied now, in the context of the challenges we have in the Anthropocene and so on. Yes. So this is something that I explored since many years ago, and then when I realized that I was a systems thinker, then I started exploring the systems thinking and systems, general theory, cybernetics, complexity theory. And that was mind-blowing for me, Julian, because I could see the interconnections and how
coming together.
Coming together. And it was like, oh my God, there's so much here to explore, so much to learn, and so much we can bring into practice.
Yes, exactly.
So now what I actually do in a nutshell is applying all this in my work. I'm an associate professor at EADA Business School in Barcelona.
Okay.
And I'm also an independent consultant and evaluator, which I work mainly for the United Nations, European Commission, and also for global corporations, small and medium enterprises, and startups. So what I'm doing is practicing this, bringing it to practice, learning how it works, improving from here, and so building a body of knowledge which comes from action, research, and practice, which I think is the main challenge for system thinking.
Is yes.
and I will stop here.
Okay.
By now.
Already, that was a lot of different stuff, which really helps me to see a bigger picture of where you came from and how much you have learned about systems thinking. I think that is really awesome.
Thank you, Julian.
Okay, so why is systems thinking important for you?
Well, as I mentioned before, if you work in the domain of sustainability, for example, which is my case, or sustainable development, or regeneration, call it as you like. But interventions happen in very complex settings. Complex settings. Now people talk about VUCA, environments, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Others call it tuna, the turbulence, novel. So call it as you like it as well. You know that economists will like these kind of acronyms. But to me, it's about complexity, all about increasing complexity. And sometimes, Julian, we have to understand the nature of the challenges, which are multifactorial, so they are many. So when working sustainability, you have how the economic system is tensioning the ecological system, right? And how the organizations that create wealth, that are the main institution of any economic system, are also influence this pattern of constant, economic growth that is tensioning and deteriorating the ecological systems in which we live. So systems thinking really help you understand the problem and the setting and the environment in which you work. So that's, to me, fundamental. So it's all about understanding the elements of a system, the tensions that the system experiences, the relationships between the elements, the different perspective, which to me, that was also eye-opening. We all have, and this is something that Taoists and Buddhists all agree, reality does not exist, per se. There's just a fundamental, the ultimate reality that we can only get there through the practice of oneness and what unites us all as human beings. And the other things, those are conventional realities. And by conventional realities, what we understand is that we all have subjective perspectives on how we understand reality.
How we understand things, yes.
And this is key in system thinking.
Which also leads to the element of context, and which is what I'm studying at the moment, to understand how context plays a role in the way we perceive and understand what different things are. So everything is connected.
Everything, it's that interdependence which is fundamental, right? And Julian, let me share an insight I had one day. I'm also an evaluator. I evaluate programs in international development. And as an evaluator, you hunt evidence. You want to get evidence. You have you want to evaluate the program, and then you have an inquiry framework. You have evaluation questions, and then of course you want to find evidence, right, that support this. And so, but any piece of evidence, a fact, data, is nothing unless it is contextualized. So without understanding the context, you cannot interpret finding a piece of evidence.
Exactly.
And for that reason, systems thinking is very much helpful.
I agree 100% with you. Exactly that. Able to see it in different contexts. You, as the individual, has to have this open mind to understand all the different perspectives, to be able to fully understand what the context is, and to then evaluate in turn, because I guess your evaluation model will be flexible and adaptive.
And adaptive, totally. Yes, totally. And here, let me say, if people are hearing us and interested, I was also very much inspired by the concept of developmental evaluation which is a concept and a book written by Michael Kuhn-Patton, who later became my colleague.
Oh, wow.
And because it's a kind of approach that allows you to be adaptive in evaluating, you know? And it's very much suited for complex contexts, for building up and developing new innovations, you know. And in that context, that approach really helps you, you know, grasp the context and apply systems thinking.
Thank you. Okay. So how do you practice systems thinking? Do you use I'll leave it as open as that, and then you can answer.
Yeah, well, it's a very open question.
Yes.
And it's a very good one, Julian, but it's not easy to answer straightforward.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. No, well, for example, in developing in my work as a consultant, I use systems thinking to methods, approaches, you know, of systems thinking in order to facilitate processes of change. Okay. You know, so for example, in trying to understand problems, in putting different challenges into different contexts, in trying to capture the different perspectives around a problem.
Yes.
So you have different systems methodologies that you can use. In for example, in organizational development, no, and I'm going to mention the viable system model of Stafford Beer. No, for example, it's a kind of model that allows you to bring into the conversation how an adaptive organization should operate, should be structured. So this is just an example.
Yes.
And I use systems methodologies and approaches, also principles in order to facilitate my work. No? In evaluation, for example, anytime I conduct an evaluation, I use it as a way to diagnose a system.
Okay.
For example, trying to understand how the system works.
Works first.
Exactly, because otherwise, any inquiry framework where you have the evaluation questions must be an outcome and adapted to the context and the system in which you are trying to evaluate. So, well, and to me that was also eye-opening, because I was not a systems thinking evaluator all my entire life. So I learned. I was like more a classical evaluator that you're just looking for, the inquiry framework, and you apply the criteria you have for evaluating, but that comes from more linear thinking, which in evaluation is illustrated by the log frame, right? So we have a log frame, we follow the log frame, we apply that criteria, and we evaluate.
Yeah.
So I had to unlearn all this in order to learn new things to do it more systematically. And I'm still learning.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, because what I heard behind all that is that systems thinking has some methodologies, it has some definitions that should be followed. Do you agree with that as well?
Well, that's also, I think that's a very good reflection and question, Julian. I mean, to me, systems thinking is more an attitude. It's a way to see and understand life.
Yes.
I think it would be against the nature of being a systems thinker, saying that these are the methodologies, these are the approaches, there's a definition, and we should follow that. I think that would be against being a systems thinker. I mean,
but these things are there, no?
These things are there, yeah. But I think we should use those things, which are very useful, taking into account the pluralistic approach to use methods. So once you understand the system, and once you know the context, then yes, take the tools that you think would be useful for you. Yeah, but not like anytime you want to understand a system, use this tool. It depends. You know what I mean?
The first thing is to understand the system as it is first, and then see which tools can be applied to the system and its context. Then
precisely. And let me add here, Julian, something which is very useful to me, that I learned that during practicing Zen, which is ask yourself what is your relation with the system you are part of it. Because and this also resonates with the principle of quantum physics, which is the participator principle, which is since the very first moment you are observing something, a phenomenon. In that case, trying to understand a system.
Yeah.
In that first moment, you are also influencing and changing that system, and the system is also influencing yourself.
Oh, wow.
So just taking a time, to ask yourself, what is my relationship with that system? I mean, this already also sets sets the stage.
Sure. Thank you so much for this interview. I think it was awesome. And everyone, Josep Maria, you should check out his book. Hopefully you guys get a chance to read it. I'm going to put it in the subtitles, a link to where you can get the book, and so that you guys can read as well and see just how old systems thinking is and where it comes from. So thanks so much for that.
My pleasure, Julian. Anytime.